If 2025 was the year of quiet luxury, 2026 is the year handbags got interesting again. We're seeing archive revivals, exaggerated proportions, softer leather, less structure, and bags that almost look like they've already lived a very glamorous life. And more importantly, the conversation has shifted. People aren't necessarily chasing the bag with the biggest logo anymore. They're chasing the bag that makes another fashion person stop and say, wait, where did you get that? So today I'm sharing 6 of the most coveted luxury bags of 2026. From brand new designs to archival silhouettes that have suddenly become relevant again. And some of these, I genuinely think are going to define this era of fashion. Let's start with number 6. Bottega Veneta bringing back. The Veneta bag is basically proof that fashion eventually circles back to everything. The original Veneta arrived in the early 2000s. And now it's back, but somehow it feels incredibly right for 2026. Fashion coverage this year has highlighted the revived Veneta alongside Bottega's newer bags, while Vogue has also placed it firmly within 2026 slouchier bag movement. And I think I know why people are loving it. We are experiencing serious stretchered bag fatigue. For years, luxury was very much perfect shape. Perfect corners, perfect top handle, everything standing upright like it has excellent posture. But the Veneta is the complete opposite. It's soft, it's relaxed, it sits naturally against the body. And of course, you still have the iconic Bottega intrecciato leather. So even without a giant logo, anyone who knows luxury immediately knows what you're carrying. That's what I love about Bottega. It's recognizable without screaming. The Veneta also gives you that slightly vintage, early 2000s feeling without looking like you pulled an old bag out of your mom's wardrobe. It feels nostalgic but modern. And honestly, this is the kind of bag that gets better when it looks slightly lived in. I wouldn't want this bag looking absolutely pristine. Give me the softened leather, give me the little creases. Give me the I've owned this forever energy. Coveted rating 8.5 out of 10. Next, we need to talk about Gucci. Because Gucci in 2026 feels like a house trying to make bags exciting again, rather than simply relying on the same obvious classics. And the paparazzo fits perfectly into that conversation. What I find interesting about this bag is that it doesn't have the very predictable luxury handbag appearance. It feels more fashion forward, more editorial, more like something you would notice, tucked under somebody's arm during fashion week, and immediately start trying to identify. And that is becoming increasingly important in luxury. Because when everybody can recognize your bag instantly, sometimes it stops feeling exclusive. There's something much more intriguing about carrying a bag where only people who are really paying attention know what it is. And Gucci has such an enormous archive that the house can play with nostalgia, glamour, and slightly eccentric Italian styling without everything feeling overly serious. The paparazzo has that personality. This isn't necessarily the bag I would recommend as your first ever Gucci purchase. If you want something extremely safe, extremely recognizable, and extremely proven, I would probably still look toward one of Gucci's established icons. But if you already own classic bags, this is where things get interesting. Because your 5th or 10th designer bag shouldn't necessarily be practical. Sometimes it should just be fabulous. Coveted rating 8.7 out of 10. Now, this one is fascinating because the fashion pendulum has officially swung. For years, mini bag, micro bag, tiny bag that fits one airport and a dream. And suddenly, big bags are bag. Chanel has been experimenting heavily with exaggerated handbag proportions and a Matthew Blazy, with Vogue noting supersized and slouchier Chanel bags as part of the defining bag mood of 2026, which makes the messy flap feel incredibly relevant again. There is something almost rebellious about carrying a huge Chanel bag right now. The classic Chanel coats are still there, the flap, the quilting, the chain, the unmistakable Chanel DNA. But scale everything up, and suddenly it feels much cooler. Less ladies who lunch. More oversized coat, sunglasses, messy hair, huge Chanel bag. I also think larger bags make luxury feel slightly less precious. You are actually carrying your life around. Your phone, wallet, makeup, sunglasses, maybe an iPad, maybe snacks. We are finally allowed to carry things again. And visually, a messy flap creates such a strong silhouette. Would I call it subtle? Absolutely not. But sometimes subtlety is overrated. If I'm spending Chanel money, there are days when I absolutely want the bag to enter the room before I do. Coveted rating 9 out of 10. Okay, now we get to one of the bags I find most interesting creatively, the Dior Seagull. Jonathan Anderson's arrival at Dior has been one of the biggest changes in luxury fashion, and his handbag direction has brought a different energy to the house. British Vogue specifically singled out Anderson's Seagull as a playful, new everyday top-handed silhouette that can work from day to night. And this is important because Dior already has Some incredibly recognizable handbags. Lady Dior, Saddle, Book Tote. So designing another bag that can establish its own identity inside a house. With that much handbag history, not easy. The seagull feels different. There's something sophisticated about it, but it isn't overly formal. And that's the balance luxury brands are chasing right now. People still want craftsmanship. They still want beautiful leather. They still want something special. But they don't necessarily want to look like they're going to afternoon tea at a 5-star hotel every day. The seagull feels like modern Dior. It has elegance, but there's also personality. And I think Jonathan Anderson understands something incredibly important about handbags. A successful it bag needs to be recognizable from its silhouette, not just its logo. You should be able to see somebody carrying it from across the street and know what it is. That's when a bag becomes powerful. Is the seagull going to be the next Lady Dior? Way too early to say. But as a fashion proposition, I'm watching this one very closely. Coveted rating, 9.2 out of 10. This might be one of the smartest handbag launches of 2026, the Louis Vuitton Maisona 180. And there is actually a beautiful reason behind the name. Louis Vuitton was founded in 1846, meaning 2026 marks its 180th anniversary. The Maisona 180 was introduced for spring 2026, as Jack McCullough and Lazaro Hernandez reinterpreted the house's historic Maisona for their Louis Vuitton debut. The original Maisona dates back to 1975. So instead of completely abandoning Louis Vuitton's history and desperately trying to invent another puzzle bag, they went back into the archive. But they didn't just copy it, they relaxed it. The Maisona 180 has this beautiful, intentionally ondaine quality. At first glance, it almost looks open, but there is a concealed internal compartment that keeps your belongings secure. That is such a clever detail because it creates that effortless appearance everyone wants right now without sacrificing practicality. And that single top handle, gorgeous. It gives the bag that slightly careless elegance, like, oh, this old thing. Meanwhile, it costs thousands. Exactly the energy. And fashion has significantly noticed. Vogue has described the Maisona 180 as one of 2026 key handbag propositions, and it has repeatedly appeared in roundups of the season's most wanted bags. And I also think Louis Vuitton is in a particularly interesting position because people associate the brand with incredible leather craftsmanship. So when Louis Vuitton creates a relatively simple leather bag, the simplicity actually works in its favor. There is nowhere for bad construction to hide. This bag feels like something that could look even better 5 years from now. Coveted rating, 9.6 out of 10. And my number one most coveted luxury bag of 2026 is the Valentino Divine bag. This is the bag that feels like pure fashion fantasy. And celebrity momentum has helped. Vogue included the Divine Man Spring 2026 Emerging Celebrity It bags, noting sighting on stars including Margot Robbie and Selena Gomez. What makes the Divine interesting to me is that it doesn't feel like another attempt at quiet luxury. We have had years of beige, years of minimalism, years of whispering, and I think fashion is slowly saying, can we have fun again? The Divine feels glamorous, it feels feminine, it feels decorative. It feels like a bag you choose because you genuinely love fashion rather than because somebody told you it has the best resale percentage. And I love that because luxury became so investment obsessed that we almost forgot handbags are supposed to make us feel something. Not every bag needs to become a financial spreadsheet. Sometimes you see something beautiful and think, I want that. That emotional reaction is exactly what creates an it bag. And Valentino has an opportunity here. Because if the Divine becomes visually associated with this new chapter of Valentino, we are potentially watching a future house signature being created in real time. Would I call it timeless already? No, absolutely not. Timelessness has to be earned. Give it 10 years. But coveted? Right now? Absolutely. Coveted rating? 10 out of 10. So those are my 6 most coveted luxury bags of 2026. The Bottega Veneta, the Gucci Paparazzo, the Chanel Messy Flop, the Dior Seagull, the Louis Vuitton Maisona 180, and the Valentino Divine. And what I find fascinating is that almost all of them represent the same bigger shift happening in luxury right now. Bags are becoming softer, bigger, more relaxed, and more personality-driven. The obsession with perfectly polished, quiet luxury is fading. Fashion wants character again. But now I want to know what you think. If you could choose only one bag from this entire list, which one are you buying? For me, the Louis Vuitton Maisona is probably the smartest long-term choice. But the Valentino Divine, that's the one giving me the fashion butterflies. Comment your number one pick below. And if you love luxury handbags, designer fashion, and find that the piece is actually worth knowing about, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!